Hey everybody, and welcome to Epic Everyday, our weekday podcast for busy, stressed out Christians who want to thrive instead of just survive. I'm Liz Frericks, and this is my husband Evan.
Good morning.
And we're so glad you guys are here with us on this wonderful Tuesday.
Yeah, thanks for being here and thanks for listening to the show. If this episode is interesting to you or helpful in any way, please do share it with a friend. See what they think about it.
Yeah, we are all about promoting conversation in the body of Christ. So today's CSC is being surrendered, and this week, since it's our last week of shows for the foreseeable future, we thought we would talk about what we have been learning about the CSCs.
That's right. We've been talking about the CSCs and having this kind of weekly structure of, the 5 CSCs: calm, surrendered, centered, connected, and complete, talking about one each day of the week. And every Tuesday, for the past year, we've been talking about surrender in relationship to one topic or another. And so my reflections on this, I think I've just gotten more in touch with this idea of how wrong it is. And this is a cultural value of ours, that we are expected or we're praised when we make things happen, or we pull ourselves up by our bootstraps. This kind of individual power, that is the way we get things done around here. Right. But in reality, we're kind of like, if you know Homestar Runner, we're kind of like the one-legged dog, little brother. If you're familiar with that one, he's a one-legged puppy. And
you have to put a link in the comments.
Yeah, I'll find it. He's helpless. He's a one-legged dog. But that's more in line with where our power gets us. It's pretty ridiculous. And I think I've just been coming more in touch with that. In my brand of trying to control things is not really like, this powerful kind of power grab, kind of control, external stuff. It was more like reining in my own internal kind of landscape or whatever. This kind of control of like I was talking about a little bit yesterday, like I'm not going to let myself get run away with my emotions or anything like that. And I think part of surrender is also learning that, okay, well, maybe there are some things I can't control, obviously, even though I try. So then it becomes a temptation to lament certain circumstances or certain things that I foresee as bad. And I feel like I've been able to let go of that as well, and to see how pointless it is, because, trusting in God's sovereignty and just trying to surrender to God's idea of the way things are, the way he's dealing with the things are, and his goodness and grace in the midst of all that. But it's still a struggle. I mean, it's easier now that I've explored surrender more, and it's a quicker way to get peace of mind to actually do surrender than to kind of constantly be wrestling things to the ground and constantly trying to hold it all together. And the way that I do that is by talking to myself better than I did before. The self-talk before was like, you really messed that up, or you need to keep it together. And now it's more of like, well, what is God trying to do with this? I don't really know. It's confusing, but let's trust him. It's me and myself talking there. I really like that, the way, I think it's in Switched, that book Switched, where
it's by Ingrid Law.
Is that where she can freeze time and she has to say come what may to get it to turn back on? That's such a cool example of someone who's, because it's a book about a magical family, and so the girl who's the main character in that story,
Gypsy.
Yeah, she can sort of see people's past or future when she looks at them without her glasses on, and then when she sees somebody's future, like she has this woman who she saw that she was going to slip on a bar of soap, and so in the store she makes a big scene. She tries to take all of the soap and prevent this woman from buying it.
She throws it in the seafood tank.
Yeah, to try to save her from getting injured later. And she can't really stop her from getting injured later because the woman can't go to the gas station to buy soap or something,
Right.
But
she finds some somewhere else.
She's doing all this stuff. And then something happens and her magic gets switched to where instead of seeing the future, she can now freeze time. And she only freezes it when she's really stressed about stuff and she's like, can't control anything anymore.
Right.
And to get it turned back on, because it's very lonely being the only one not stuck in time or whatever, is to say, come what may. And I think that's a big part of surrender for me, is like, well, I don't know what's happening, but God does. And so come what may. And being in that, and that could sound like a disconnect from the situation, but for me, it's embracing the situation and being like, I'm going to be here. I'm not going to try to numb out. I'm going to be present, and I'm going to let God do what he's going to do. And that's possible because I know God has the ability to use the ups and downs in life, even though I cause and the other people's sin cause the downs, but God is able to redeem that stuff.
It's really cool, babe.
Thanks. I don't know. Did I tell you yours was cool yesterday? Because it was.
I don't know, but that's really good. That's a neat thing to learn. I feel like the biggest thing I got this year out of talking about surrender all the time was being double-minded and just recognizing the places where I am double-minded. We talked about that a while back in James 1, starts in verse 5 and goes, I think, until verse 9. But James talks about how, if you ask for wisdom, you have to believe and not doubt. Otherwise, you're like a wave of the sea being blown and tossed by the wind. And that someone like that should not expect anything from God. And how it's kind of like you're walking down a road. If you want to get from point A to point B, and you're walking from A to B, and then every 5 seconds you turn around and take 5 steps back, You
really like point A better.
Right, how do you expect to get anywhere in life? And I recognized that was, that's one of my tendencies, because I am one of those people that's like hardcore control the circumstances.
Sure.
And so it's really easy for me to get caught in this, like, okay, I need to take charge, I need to fix this. And that is kind of that I'm walking back to point A instead of letting God carry us to point B. Surrender is that whole, putting down those railroad tracks. Because when we're a train on the tracks, that means that it's easier, like it takes less energy, takes less time to move. Yeah, there's a reason that they built trains. So,
and the train has the right of way. They can just go through town without stopping.
Yeah, so we want to do the work of surrender because that's how to get to where we want to go. But sometimes I think we're so focused on, at least for me, like I get so focused on trying to fix the circumstances that I forget to do the work of surrender first. And that's actually something I've been working on in my Tai Chi class too, is the complement to surrender in Tai Chi is relaxation and letting your weight drain down into the earth. And so I find myself saying all the time, like, okay, down, 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 like focus on the down, because that's what makes everything work. And that's, you build out of that foundation. If you don't have that down, you've got nothing.
Yeah.
I think too, actually working on our business has really brought that to the forefront.
Yeah.
Because
it's very tricky.
Yeah. It's a lot of new skills and new things to learn and stuff that...
And we don't know what we don't know, and we're learning how little we do know.
Right, yeah. Like yesterday when I was talking about how, you climb up a foothill and you're like, oh, there's a mountain. I feel like it's like we climbed up a molehill and then we're like, oh, and there's a mountain. It's just like such a huge difference that it feels a little bit like, how are we going to get to the top of that? And I have off and on spent time praying about that, and the Lord has just reminded me, like, why are you freaking out about this? Because it's not your job to get all the way up the mountain. It's God's job to carry us up the mountain, and it's our job to rely on Him to do the surrendering.
Yeah, and that takes slugging through the day in, day out stuff.
It takes work.
Yeah, I feel like, a year ago we thought, well, we'll do a podcast and that will launch a business somehow.
Right.
And now it's like, okay, it's a little bit more complicated than that.
Yes, there's definitely a lot more to it, which is why we're taking a break from the podcast so that we can, figure out the other stuff and maybe eventually come back to the podcast because it's been a lot of fun recording, but...
Yeah, that was good stuff. Thanks for sharing the, because it's personal. You and I handle things so differently.
That's true.
And that's
why
good.
That's why it's a good, dynamic between us.
I think so. And we learn from each other. And I appreciate, we can appreciate each other's position, even though we don't totally understand it.
Yes. As always, pick whether today is going to be awesome or not, whether you're going to strengthen those neural pathways to look for the good things or to practice surrender like we were talking about, or strengthen the neural pathways to look for the bad things, to hang on to stuff, to focus on circumstances, all those kinds of things. Because it is really your choice, and what you practice is what you're going to get good at and what you're going to have more of in your life. We love you guys, and we are praying for you. Thanks to everybody that's been listening to the show and sharing the show. We really appreciate it. If you have found this episode helpful, please do share it. Come back tomorrow. We're going to continue our walk through the CSCs and talk about what we've learned about being centered.
Yeah, sounds good. Talk to you guys tomorrow.
Have a great Tuesday.